and go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I'll get started again. My name's Isabel. I work for Michaelson Found Animals, one of the LEAP partners, and I work with Assad on all things LEAP. And we're really excited to talk to you all today about our LEAP Venture Studio program. If you have questions throughout, feel free to type them in the chat box, and Assad will let me know. We'll also have time at the end to go into questions. So again, my name is Isabel Havens, and then I work with Assad, and we're excited to go through this presentation today. So it'll take me about 25 to 30 minutes to go through a lot of the information. We'll have time at the end for questions. Please stay muted just to make it a little bit easier. We know we have a big group on the call, and we're also recording this. So we'll put it up on our YouTube channel after, and you can always rewatch it again or share with anyone else who wasn't able to make the call today. So a little bit about LEAP. LEAP was started with the emergence and growth of the pet care industry, but seeing that pet startups specifically were underinvested and there weren't many programs to help them scale and grow. So LEAP is one of the first programs designed to ignite meaningful growth across the entire pet startup ecosystem. LEAP is a partnership between Kinship and Michaelson Found Animals, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I'm going to go through the two programs that we have as LEAP, and I'll dive a little bit deeper. But on a high level, our LEAP Venture Academy is year-long free programming for pet care startups at any stage. These include webinars, workshops, meetups. We had a pitch competition a couple weeks ago. We have our boot camp for female and POC founders in a couple weeks, and generally just access to mentors, advisors, and funding. Our other program is the LEAP Venture Studio that all of you are here to learn about today. We have one cohort per year in the spring of 6 to 8 startups. This year, our virtual programming will happen from February to May 2021, and companies that participate can receive up to $200,000 in investment.
Word.
And a little bit more about our partnership. So Michaelson Found Animals is an animal welfare nonprofit based in Los Angeles. We believe that people and pets are better together. So we operate a wide range of programs. If you've ever learned a little bit Michaelson Found Animals, it's almost hard to cover everything we do. But we have social enterprises based in Los Angeles. So we have a shelter in Culver City. We also have a national registry program. We do philanthropic investments, both scientifically in medical research, and with other programs like LEAP, and then strategic initiatives such as our Better Neighbor Project and our Pet Inclusive Housing Initiative. If you're interested in any of those, I recommend checking them out on our website. Really cool things that we're doing both in Los Angeles and across the United States. And here are some of the resources that you can get from Michaelson Found Animals through participating in our programs and partnering with us. So within Los Angeles, we have adoptable cats and dogs, a large volunteer and foster base, and deep relationships with policymakers, shelters, and the rescue community. And then across the nation, we have millions of pets and owners registered, a monthly newsletter, and a huge amount of visitors to our website and social following. And then Assad, do you want to talk a little bit about Kinship?
Yeah, sure. So Kinship is a division of Mars Pet Care. We are here to serve pet parents and all the products and services that make them the best pet parents that they can be. We can go to the next slide, Isabel. Thank you. So yeah, so Kinship is part of Mars Pet Care, which is one of the largest, or if not the largest, pet care company in the world. And we feed more than half of the world's dogs and cats. And we have 44 brands in our portfolio, like Pedigree, Iams, Royal Canin, Banfield VCA. Just a really great organization. I've been here for about 2 years now, and it's just great to see how much they're committed to building a better world for pets. And we are really happy with the partnership that we have with both the Michaelson Found Animals and RGA Ventures. And Dylan is on the call as well, who will say hi in a little bit.
Awesome. So now I'm just going to talk briefly about our LEAP Venture Academy. So pet care entrepreneurs need a lot of help. All of you know this even better than I do. Support through mentorship, building your team through networking, access to capital. All of these things go into building your pet care startup. And so the Leap Venture Academy was started when we realized that our Leap Venture Studio really helps early revenue to repeating revenue, if you look at that analysis for this stage of companies. But we really wanted to support companies all the way from the idea stage. So that's why we if you're just joining, try to mute yourself. Thank you. And so our Leap Venture Academy, again, is year-round free programming. It's pre-accelerator, so before you are eligible to participate in the studio, and is really about community building. We connect pet care entrepreneurs with resources, mentorship, funding. Events are all year round. We have webinars, I would say, at least 2 to 3 times a month. We had a pitch competition a few weeks ago. Again, you can find the recording on our YouTube channel if you're interested in looking into it. We have a boot camp coming up. When we were attending major conferences, we tried to meet in person and really build connections throughout the pet care industry. On the left is a photo of our boot camp from last year. Just really excited to engage with founders and make sure that we can only support 6 to 8 startups through our Leap Venture Studio program, so we wanted to create a larger community. And again, I kind of touched upon this, but we're in the middle of our summer series right now. Applications have already closed, but this really highlights some of the programs we host year round. After the boot camp, we're also going to have our cat summit. We want to make sure that cat startups get the attention that they deserve. I know pet care can sometimes be dog heavy, and so we're hosting a 1-day virtual programming for cat startups. And now onto our Leap Venture Studio program, which is why all of you are here. So the Leap Venture Studio is the first startup-centric accelerator program built to springboard innovation. It's a 12-week program. This year it'll run from February to May of 2021. Our first cohort was in 2018. We now have had 3 cohorts, 19 startups from across the board. And again, it's a partnership between Michaelson Found Animals, Kinship, and RGA Ventures. And a note that we're open to startups from around the world. We've worked with startups from all over, and even though we're doing virtual programming, everyone is welcome to apply and join. And so here's a little bit about why you should join the Leap Venture Studio. The first is seed funding. We know startups, this is the main thing that when we talk with startups, the first thing they need. So that is an exciting part of this program. Dylan, do you want to talk a little bit about the RGA services package?
Yeah, thanks, Isabel. I'm Dylan with RGA Ventures. It seems to be I'm in a photo on the screen too, which is weird. But RGA is a global digital agency. We work with about 200 major brands around the world. We've been running studios for the past 7 years, in which we co-invest along with Mars and Michaelson. And along with that, we build a services team for every company in which goes through the Leap Venture Studio. That being, our process is typically like we would work with any large brand we work with, doing audits to tear down or understand like where you are in the journey. So whether it's from a technology audit to a consumer brand audit to a business audit, pricing, modeling, anything we would do for a major brand, we do for the companies that we co-invest in. During that process, we'll come to an agreement through the audit of what is best for your company, like where we can help the most. And that's in partnership with those going through the studio. And we will then execute against those. So imagine, you get the, 4 to 8 different people across RGA that are going to lean in on design or development or brand or communication strategy. And we create artifacts and have some outputs of helping you design, develop, and do those things. So that's really where we lean in for about 6-7 weeks, maybe up to 8, depending on the company and what needs to be accomplished during the studio time.
And
Awesome.
sorry, Isabel, can I just also jump in? And Dylan, can you also just talk about how you are personally involved with the program? Dylan is our managing director of the program, so he's heavily involved in what happens.
I work on a daily basis, leading up to, during, and for the end of time after the studio, working with the founders that are partners with us. My main things I try to help with is, past experience of building and operating startup companies, just day-to-day decision making. I'm really almost a counsel in many cases where they need to decide on things to do or how to approach a situation. I also help a lot with networking, so whether that's into corporate sales driven networking opportunities, channel sales opportunities, as well as future fundraising or current fundraising opportunities, leveraging my network of investors, which could be interested, or making the right introductions for the companies that we work with.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. So in addition to everything Dylan went over, which is a huge offering of the studio, you'll get access to teams and experts from Kinship and MFA as well. We bring in outside mentors and supporters who are interested in pet care and want to get more involved with your company. I think a huge bullet point here is that you get a cohort of fellow entrepreneurs. The connections that are made between the founders and the relationships go beyond the 12 weeks of the studio, and a lot of partnerships are built out of the studio. And so I think that's a great offering, is to meet fellow like-minded founders and work together on pushing innovation within the pet care industry. After that, bullet point after that is it's a really personalized experience. Like Dylan talked about, RGA spends a lot of time figuring out exactly how they can best support your company. That also goes for MFA and Kinship. And there's also numerous in-kind services and discounts that are offered through the outside speakers we bring in. So a little bit about the timeline. The first note, I know I've mentioned this, but the programming will be entirely virtually for this next year, which is exciting because it doesn't mean as much travel, and we're hoping to reach more founders this way. Our applications open on September 8th, so all of you are already ahead of this timeline, learning more about the program. September 8th is the Tuesday after Labor Day. And then the applications close on October 15th, so you have about 5 or 6 weeks to work on your application. In mid-November, we'll have the top 25 companies that apply pitch, and by mid-December, we'll have selected our 6 to 8 startups that will be participating in the studio. February 8th is our official date for the program to begin, and then we will be having our demo day presentation likely around May 5th of 2021. And then a little bit of a deeper dive into the activities within the 12 weeks of the program. It's a little bit cut off. This says pending COVID-19. Some of these things might shift around a little bit, but generally our first month is about 30 hours a week, and it's really spent figuring out, meeting with RGA, meeting with MFA and Kinship. What are the specific ways that these companies can support you and aid your goals and growth across the 12 weeks. You'll connect with mentors and the companies within your cohort, and then just develop a specific learning plan. The second month is a little bit less of a time investment. There's weekly webinars each week from different speakers. Also every week, there's a call just between the cohort companies to present to each other. So these peer presentations are ways for you to share expertise that you have as a founder. You will continue to work with mentors that we bring in to address key issues. You'll start your services project that Dylan talked about with RGA Ventures. And then there's office hours with all the partners. So with, Dylan is, as he mentioned, he's day-to-day helping you helping you grow. Assad and I are also both there to assist your growth, and then other partners from our organizations. The third month is about 10 to 20 hours a week. You'll continue the weekly webinars and peer presentations. You'll begin to implement your services project. You'll begin to develop and work on your pitch deck for demo day. And then you'll have that final presentation where we bring investors, mentors, and other people that have both participated in your program come and listen to your pitches. That's just an amazing presentation to get to watch and participate in. And then we'll plan for the post-accelerated experience, because these 12 weeks are just the beginning of your relationship with LEAP. And so we'll continue to find out ways that you'll connect with everyone from the partner organizations and continue to grow together. Next, we're just going to go over our past cohort companies. If you've been on our website, you might have seen these before. This is just a way for you to get an idea of the types of companies that we've invested in the past. I won't go too much into detail, but you can always check out their websites through our LEAP website. Our second cohort, and both of these were 6 companies, happened in person. And then I'll highlight our last cohort, happened this spring. Halfway through, we transitioned to virtual, an amazing pool of companies. And we're really excited to find our next cohort. So who are we looking for? Generally, we're looking for qualified candidates that have developed at least a MVP, a minimum viable product. We want to see that you have achieved or are beginning to achieve customer traction. We are open to tech-enabled companies at a variety of stages. We're looking at business models, both B2B and B2C. We want to make sure, this is an important one, that your team is large enough that the founder can really focus. As we went through before, it is a big hourly time commitment each week. And so if you're still a solo founder, you might not be able to run your company while you're participating in LEAP. So I think that's an important thing to highlight, is if you are a solo founder, how will you be able to manage the time commitment? Are you focused on building your team before the program begins? That's something that's really important for us.
You have the keys, right? Mm-hmm.
And then a note from Assad, Grassroots Reality. So really understanding your company, what your total addressable market is, who your customers are, what stage you're at. We want to really be seeing an honest answer for all of those application responses. And then the last note we'll make is that we are not investing currently in CBD companies. If that is part of your product line, please reach out to us individually and we can talk a little bit more about that. And then just from I guess like a personality standpoint, or from what we're looking for entrepreneurs, we really want to see motivation and commitment. This is a big commitment for 12 weeks, and because it's virtual, it's a lot of time spent in front of your computer and a lot of extra work putting into building relationships. So we really want to see that demonstrated in your application. Passion about pet care and about your product or service. Communication is key, being able to work with founders, and that also goes into your coachability. Will you be receptive to the mentors we provide for you? Will you be able to work with us to really make sure that you get the most out of the program and can grow as best as possible? And then from your company, we want to see potential for growth and profit. Uniqueness. We want to see that you're tackling a specific problem in a unique way. Impact. Are you creating positive impact both on the lives of pets and their people, but in the industry as a whole? And then we really want to highlight, just as in past years, but especially this year, commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does your team look like? How are you building diversity, equity, inclusion within your team as you grow from the beginning? Also, in the development of your product and service and how you market it, are you keeping diversity, equity, and inclusion in mind? Because pet owners are extremely diverse, and we want to make sure that we are serving every pet owner when we're looking to grow the pet care industry. And what stage do we accept? This is a question we get a lot. And so right in front of you, we have examples of anonymous companies that we've accepted and just a little bit of information around them to show you that there's not one answer to what stage do we accept. So company A, for instance, was early revenue when they applied, so up to $10,000 per month. They had about $800,000 in funding. The team was 2 co-founders with 3 contractors. So from that, we knew that the 2 co-founders, if they are participating, they have each other to balance the work-related tasks that will continue throughout the 12 weeks. And then a big highlight and point of, or an impressive point for us in their application was that they had a partnership with a large online retail company. And that showed us that they were starting to build traction and expand their customer base. So company B was also early revenue with the same amount of funding, but their team was a lot larger. So there were 3 co-founders and 8 full-time employees. So the 3 co-founders really had time to invest in the program. And what really stood out to us is that they had millions of downloads and over 250,000, I think, monthly users. And then the final company, which stands a little bit differently from company A and B, is they had repeating revenue. So they had been around for a little bit longer. They were making more money each month, but they had no funding. This was their first time applying to an accelerator program, reaching out to get investments. And it was a solo founder, but 15 part-time staff. So the founder was able to dedicate most of their time to the Leap Venture Studio programming. I think this is a good just guide to the diversity of stages that we do accept. And, you know, depending on the applications with this year, we could add, you know, company D, E, F, right? So every year we get different stages. So there's no exact answer to this question, but I think this is a good guide.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly jump in and say, you know, I would say if you're not sure, apply. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that we say no and apply again next year. And just because you didn't get in one year doesn't mean you're not eligible for a future year. And we have worked with companies who didn't get into one program to get into the program the next time around as their company have grown as we've gotten to know them a lot better.
Awesome. Thanks, Assad. The next thing I'm going to go over is just some common problems and errors. This is a lot of information. Also, you can come back and look at these slides again on the recording. But just a few things, I'll run through the list. An incomplete application. This is so hard to see just because we know you put effort in and maybe missed a couple questions. So really be diligent, make sure you answer every questions. And also for your deck, make sure you follow a maximum of 15 slides. Something I'll add to the application that goes along with this too is being concise in your questions. So when you're answering all of them, make sure that each one you're answering concisely and directly to make sure that we understand your product or service as best as possible. Just if there's not a word limit, that doesn't mean you should fill up the whole space. And if some questions have a little bit of crossover, make sure you're just answering the question directly and not repeating information throughout the application. The next is a lack of understanding of the stage you are at. So we kind of just went over, we look at companies from all different stages, but it's really important for us to know exactly where you are and being honest at the time that you apply. We know things can change, by the time the program starts in February, but we really need to understand what stage you are at when you apply. So we can also best provide feedback because one offering you get from applying is that we'll provide feedback from the judges. The next is a lack of understanding of your value proposition or significantly overstating it. Again, being specific and concise is really important for this. Lack of understanding of your customer. I think sometimes we see that the customer is identified as any pet owner, which is just not true because you'll never be able to reach every pet owner. So really be specific here. And even if you haven't launched, who's the type of customer you want to go after? I think the more specific you are, the better for that question. Underestimating effort and resources required. This goes into the team, 12 weeks with a big hourly commitment every week. We want to make sure that you're going to be ready to participate fully in all of the programs. And also just in the growth of your company throughout those 12 weeks. You don't get to stop working just because you're participating in an accelerator. Next, we see a lot actually is a failure to identify competition. Having competition is not necessarily a bad thing. It shows that other people have a similar idea and think that this is, a great market opportunity. But we really need to know that you understand what competitors are out there and understand exactly your market.
I'm going to just jump in with my favorite story that I share all the time, and that is every time I've run an application process for an accelerator program, and I've been doing this for 8 or 9 years, we always get people that apply that say, there's nobody else doing what we're doing. But then within that same application, group, there's like 2 or 3 other people that are doing the exact same thing that they're doing. So yeah, definitely, identifying your competition and knowing what's out there is a big thing.
Thank you. Yeah. Next is unproven team or solo founder. We've kind of gone into this before. This isn't necessarily a reason that you won't get in, but as we showed from this stage, making sure you have a team to support you throughout the length of the program is really important. Next is inconsistent facts or logic. So this kind of just goes into really spending time on your application. You have September 8th to October 15th. We won't start looking till October 15th. So use that time to your advantage and make sure that you really look at all of your questions and you're consistent in the information you're presenting, and that the logic of why we should choose your company makes sense. And the last is over-optimistic financial projections, really focusing on the calculations you're making with your total addressable market, and being realistic about the growth of your company. Now just get a little bit into the teams. So from Michaelson Found Animals, you can see me. I will be supporting the program. Really excited to be doing a lot of the coordination. Brett Yates is the acting executive director of Michaelson Found Animals. He takes a huge role in the studio, and you'll get a lot of time to work with him. He brings a lot of expertise of the animal welfare market, and years of working with entrepreneurs. He's hosting office hours in September while the application is still open. So if you have questions specifically for him, that's a great way to engage and meet him one-on-one. And that's up on our Eventbrite. And then lastly, Phil Kim. He's the co-founder and president of Michaelson 20 Million Minds, which is another one of Dr. Gary Michaelson, another one of his philanthropies. And Phil works really closely with us on our studio companies. Next for Kinship, do you want to introduce yourself and Ben Assad?
Yeah, sure. So Assad Butt, I'm the director of ventures and partnerships at Kinship. And so my job is essentially Leap and connecting startups within the Mars Pet Care and Kinship ecosystem. And then Ben Jacobs, who was formerly of Kinship and now kind of is an advisor to us and to Leap. He was the co-founder of Whistle, which then sold, co-founder and CEO of Whistle, which then sold to Mars Pet Care. And so the last couple of years, he has been focused on this kind of venture investment within Mars and Kinship, and now he's running his own fund, but he's still involved quite heavily. And then there's also a bunch of other people within Kinship, but we are the 2 main people at this point.
Awesome. And then last, Dylan, do you want to introduce your team?
Sure. I'm Dylan Boyd. I've been with RGA for officially 6 years. Prior to that, I actually built their first 2 studios as an outside partner. This will be my 29th accelerator / venture studio over the last 10 years. So I've worked with a lot of large corporations and hundreds of companies in different verticals. Jonathan Bradley is my partner in crime. We should change that title. He's out of North Carolina. I've worked with Jonathan since the beginning, and we work hard not only on making sure that anyone that's in the program is getting what they need out of it, but also in making connections inside of RGA as well as Interpublic Group. So we also are part of Interpublic Group, which owns about 100 agencies around the world, which work with thousands of brands and customers. So part of what we try to do consistently is make introductions to them, Walmarts, et cetera, to help bring more products to market where we see opportunities. Joyce is really the brains behind the whole thing. Joyce is out of Austin, Texas, and she's been with us as a strategist. She's really deep research and analyst, really looking at behaviors and trends and markets. And she helps to shape a lot of the ideas and vision around that. Not, like Assad said, not represented in this slide as well, are the 30 to 40 others that we'll bring together during the studio from across RGA disciplines, which you'll also get to work with.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. So just some more information about connecting with Leap before we wrap up this part of the presentation. If If you don't already, we're on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We have a Slack channel. It's a great place to connect with founders and get updates about Leap. And we also have a monthly newsletter where you can get even more updates about Leap and our events, and also just news updates about pet care and some of our alumni companies. If you have specific questions, comments, feedback, you can also email us at leapventurestudio@gmail.com. And thank you for joining today. Our goal is to create a smarter world for pets and their people, and our studio is one of the main ways we do that, and we're excited to learn more about all of your companies. So I'm going to exit full screen and see if we have any questions we want to answer right now.
Hello, my name is Adrian Archie. Question, as I look at accelerators in the past, it seems a lot of them have been very focused on technology-driven firms, whereas I'm more of a brick and mortar. Obviously, technology is a huge part of what I do to service the customer on a day-to-day, but how weighted is that if you don't necessarily have a huge technology portion right now? Is it still a viable option?
Yeah, so do you want to take that?
Yeah, certainly. I think you kind of said it almost exactly right. So I think that it all depends on what your plan is and where you are in that plan. And so, in the past couple of years, we have accepted companies that are kind of location based that didn't have the tech, but that was in the plan for them. I think the question that you'd have to answer, and again, I know your company a little bit, is just what your growth plan is. Are you looking to scale? And then I think from our side, we have to assess whether we have the team in place that can actually advise you on that strategy. And I think that we are becoming more and more comfortable with the fact of helping companies like yours. And so I think specifically for this cohort, we are looking at a couple startups that are like yours. And so, yeah, I would say definitely apply.
What? I'm the only one doing what I do.
I guess a location-based and franchising model, I guess, is what I'll say.
I'm joking. Totally joking. I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Another question I saw is, how did the virtual demo day perform this year compared to the previous in-person events? Maybe you or Dylan wants to answer that one.
Yeah. Dylan, do you want to answer?
Sure. I mean, everyone knows the world's a weird place right now, and good and bad. But the good that came of the demo day was the amount of excitement and participation. Typically when we hold something in a geographic location, LA, New York, somewhere else, you're dealing with schedules and travel of trying to get all the right people there. With our virtual demo day, we actually got a amazing group of investors, industry leadership, Mars, Michaelson leadership, all to be there at the same time. It was highly engaging. We worked with all the founders in the Leap program, working up to that to actually help them design their decks, rehearse, like this over Zoom, work on their presentations and their pitches, do a lot of coaching, and it actually worked out, I don't know, even better than expected. We expected it to be great, but it really was. We got a lot of great feedback from investors. There were a lot of great connections that were made. And I think it's only for us to raise the bar this next time around, because by this time May, we're all going to have the worst Zoom fatigue ever. So one of the things on our team to add to that is Dave Isaacs, who leads our global presentations team, works with all of our founders to help them build their decks. On top of the work we do on the services side, just another thing that we do to continue to take your deck and make sure that the messaging is clear and concise, and use our professional design services to design it all out. That's in combination with you. Nothing's done in a silo. Everything's done in partnership with each founder. So we're making sure we're saying and doing the right things and positioning you in a way you can use this deck, not just for demo day, but thereon. he also, during this whole time, he has been in every new chat platform, every new video platform, every new presentation tool that you can imagine, trying to find all the best things that we could possibly do. So we're already working on and testing a few new things that could really help for Demo Day next year. A lot of breakout rooms for individuals during the sessions. So I think we'll have some magic to pull out of our sleeve at that point in time.
Great, thanks, Dylan. Definitely have to add Dave to the slide. Another question is, with COVID fears, but also the growth of the pet market, have we seen any specific changes in pet industry investment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, investment is still happening. I think the general consensus is that it just is taking a lot longer for people to write checks and connect with entrepreneurs, and I think generally that's what I've seen. But I've seen definitely startups and early stage startups close money as well with connections that they already had. Or I think, as we're going through this, more and more people are getting comfortable with investing without meeting someone in person. And then on top of that, the angel investor friends that I've talked to, those people are used to investing in startups that are, still in the development stage. And so the smart ones, or the ones that are active, are still investing right now, knowing that, people are building their products and they'll release later on this year or next year or whatever. So, I think at a high level, it's still happening. It's probably slower than normal, but there's still capital out there.
Let's say that anyone that's raising, it's always slower than normal. It's never fast enough. And that's something that's never changed. You're always like, we nailed it. They're in. 2 months later, you're like, wait, where's the money? That's a constant. Assad, you're spot on. We have not seen, I think for about a month and a half, we saw a pullback, March, April. And it was really tied to liquidity in markets, especially for angel investors, watching other things they were invested in, other businesses. There's a little, trepidation of understanding. But this summer, we've seen a lot of great people. We've seen even more corporate funds take some of the gap. We've seen a lot of more corporate funds start up and take advantages. The pet market as a whole, I have look at the most recent report, but it was higher than it's been at any point in time, because the markets themselves for pets, as you all know, why you're here, are growing exponentially right now with, rescue shelters being emptied out and everyone at home with more time for pets. We're seeing not only one pet enter houses, but multiple pets enter houses and multiple types of pets enter houses. So I think it all bodes very well. If you tie it to the sales data inside of the Chewies and the Amazons and the Krogers and Mars and everyone else out there, it's all up and to the right. So when you look at and point that data back to the investors, they're all seeing it as a solid investment. One other thing in the pet care space is it's almost like, children or other things that are year round, right? They're evergreen. So a lot of these businesses, you have to feed your pet every day. You have to walk your pet. All the things that are rinse, lather, repeat are in the pet care space are not a one-time thing. Insurance, healthcare, services, commerce, products. They have really great models that are really quick to prove there's a revenue stream in. Either the consumer loves it because of product placement and packaging, or the experience, and they come back over and over again. But again, everything gets tied to financial markets at the end of the day. You might not be able to afford or feel comfortable spending on a premium product for a certain period of time in your life. And so we watch these trends pretty carefully, but we've only seen inbound interest pick up.
Cool. Lots of questions coming in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Isabel.
No, I was just going to read out the next one if that's helpful.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
On average, how many reptile advisors could mentor me?
That's a great question. I actually don't know of any specific reptile advisors, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of them out there. my job and our job, if should you be accepted or part of our community, is to go find the right people that you can talk to, and there might be specific reptile expertise people, or it could be just generic business people. But yeah, you know, if they exist, Dylan probably knows them because he's connected to everybody.
Okay. I'll go find them. I think that's what earlier on is. It's our job to go figure these things out and help founders, and especially whether it's through the Mars organization and others. If we don't know, we'll go figure it out. And people are typically receptive to our outreach.
Awesome. Another question is, does work experience and knowledge of the pet industry increase your chances of being accepted into the studio?
Sorry, say that again. Does work experience and
knowledge of the pet industry increase your chances of being accepted into the studio?
Well, it doesn't hurt it. I mean, I'd say, I'd look at some founders we've had. Some hadn't spent time in the pet industry, and some had. We've had, one like Jiminy's, Anne at Jiminy's. She spent, years in the pet food space, and she came with an incredible bit of knowledge and why what she was doing with the cricket-based proteins was going to be a great market opportunity. That really helped her. It also helped her because she had vendor relationships from past experiences. But, we look at someone like a Barkaboo or others who have come just with a software background or other outside experience, but with a passion to go out and learn and meet and understand, and they've been just as successful. So I don't know if it doesn't help or diminish, but it's a nice thing to have in your cap.
Yeah, agreed. I think that I would answer it a little bit differently. This kind of goes to Bibiana's question about the solo founder and how can you prove that you have a team to support you. Is I think, especially the early stage that most of you guys or you gals and guys are at is, we're going to take a look at the team and the advisor slide that you have in your deck and kind of, we're going to look at that not only for the expertise, but also the diversity and equity, and inclusion part of it. And I think also something that's important to point out in the application process or whatever is like, who's missing from your team and who do you think that you need to kind of complete this team? Because, that's also like, if you say that you're missing a veterinarian or you're missing a business person or whatever, that's helpful for us in terms of as we're assessing you and how we can help you when you come to the program. So yeah, I mean, I think generally, I think more than whether or not coming into the accelerator program or the studio program, whether you have that expertise on your staff or not, I think business wise, if you're in the pet industry, it's probably good to have that kind of expertise on your team, right? Because I came from the education company and education world, and startups that didn't have an educator on their staff were kind of looked down upon by educators that they were, trying to be, that the startups were trying to sell to. So, I think it's just good business practice to have someone with that sort of pet care knowledge and expertise on your staff or advisory board for sure.
Cool. We have two pretty similar questions. Is it possible for companies in the idea stage to get accepted in the studio? Also companies that are pre-revenue but are going to be launching a product in November or December?
Yeah, I mean, again, we look at the application as a whole, and I think that we are thinking about placing bigger bets on earlier stage companies this time around. But I think that the companies that will get the most out of the experience will be companies that have a product in the market with some sort of traction and or some sort of revenue. Otherwise, it seems like you are just coming for the investment, and you're not going to get the most out of the program. I would say that so I think whether you can apply or whether you should apply are two different questions. I think everybody should apply because at the minimum, you're going to get feedback from Isabel and myself and Dylan and from the application committee on your startup. You get to know us. You can build that relationship. We'll try to make connections for you. Whether or not you'll get in, I think so much of it depends on, there could be someone on the application committee that says, I love this idea. I love this team. I think that they can execute, and I think that they can hit their goals by February when the program starts so that they'll actually get the most out of the program. uh, um, and there could be people that say, no, they're too early. They'll be ready for next year, which we've said that multiple times with startups, that we really love. We love the founder. We love the team, but we said it at the end of the day, we said, no, come back next year. We'll work with you in the meantime to get you ready. Does that answer the question, Catherine and Viviana?
I would put everybody to apply, but we've seen some companies that were in the hardware space that the timeline's longer, right? And we've seen some companies in bio and vegetable-based foods, proteins, that they're still trying to work out formulations. And I think lines not dots. So if you're in that category where you're trying to show us where you're going and the milestones you're hitting to get there, that's the big thing on pre-revenue. Here's the next 10 steps we need to make, and I'm going to keep you up to date of what we're doing to get there. And as you knock them down, or as you fail miserably with one of them, it's okay. We just need to know what those things are. So when you're in that stage, just the more clarity and communication, the better.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add. I wouldn't preface myself with like a lot of real experience in like longevity with these things, but just a note that I personally have taken away from other accelerators and really long-term waxing negotiations with VC firms for my own ideas, even before pet space. Sometimes pivotability is a very good thing, actually. And you might actually find yourself where at a point on the other side of going into an accelerator or a studio where you might think to yourself, man, I really wish that we hadn't actually done that, because now I know something that really I would change the way I'm doing it, but now I'm kind of bound in the parameters of this studio or this program. And especially early stage, when you're just starting to touch the customer, it really, you get excited by what the customer gets excited by. And if you get bound and trapped in this program, not your program per se, but in a program, you might wish that you had gone about it differently. So it's just a whole other side of the coin to consider.
Yeah, we're gonna bind and trap you. The leap cult we got going on over here. No, I love it, Alex. No, Alex, I think that's exactly right. I'll give you guys an example. The first time I ran an accelerator program, we had a company that came to the program and went through the first couple weeks and just assumed that he was God's gift to startups, and that all the investors that we put him in front of in the first couple weeks and mentors would invest in him, and nobody did because he didn't have a product yet or didn't have much of a product. And so he ended up returning the money to us and saying, I'm out, which was very interesting. And so it just wasn't a right fit for him at the time. But I think fit is everything, and stage fit is everything too. And there are plenty of other accelerator programs out there that are great for the various stages. And but again, I highly recommend that everybody apply, because the worst thing is that we say no, but we get to know you a little bit better. And on top of that, there might be other opportunities within the kinship MFA RGA space where partnerships could emerge. An example would be I talked to a startup recently that was very early stage, and just because I happened to talk to him, I that week I put him in touch with Whistle, one of our brands, and now they're doing a small partnership together. And so you just never know what conversation or what application is going to help get you to the next level.
Great.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, if there's any other questions, we have about 9 minutes left. Feel free to type them in the chat or chime in.
Isabel, I'll ask you a question. Okay, so we're going to read, you and I and Dylan, we're going to be reading 100, 150 questions. When you open up that application, what do you look at first, and what do you respond to first, and how do you react?
Yeah, this is something I learned from Assad and from Amy, who was the former executive director of Michaelson Found Animals, is I start with the deck because I think it's a great way to learn about the company, both about their brand, how they present themselves, but also how they present their information, because most of the questions we ask should be answered in your slides. It also forces you to be concise, and so I think it's a great way to see the most simple answer to the questions we ask. So I spend a few minutes going through the deck, and then I'll go back to the questions, and then I'll read through them for anything that I felt that I missed or didn't understand fully. And I think that's both the most time efficient way to read through the applications, because there are a lot of them, but I think it's also the most interesting.
Dylan?
I mean, I would agree on the deck. Number one, the thing that I want to understand, do they know what they're doing? Do they know the market? Like, those are the two big things for me. And what do they not know? Because that's the questions I want to ask them afterwards, coming from that deck. I also go, no matter what, I'm going to go and look at LinkedIn. I'm going to go and look at social if it exists, and I'm going to go look at your website if it exists, and just make sure see where those messages come together and where they fall apart. One thing I'd also suggest, and not everybody will do this, so I'm just going to put my hand up, but I'm more than willing to spend a half an hour with about anyone who has questions prior to submitting their applications. I know that we have an official office hours time, Isabel, but at the same point in time, I'm happy to share a booking link for myself, that if anyone wants to grab 30 minutes and prior to filling out the application or going through a deck, I'll walk through all your questions and give you feedback of what I might tighten up or where I would have questions before you fill in the blanks. So that's of interest to you later on. I'm happy to do that with you.
Well, one other sort of piece of advice. Thanks, Dylan. And Dylan is so accessible. It's great. And yeah, we have a bunch of other webinars and office hours coming up, and certainly reach out to people. It's okay to not have answers. We know that you guys are early stage and whatnot. So, instead of making up some bullshit, excuse my language, it's okay to say, like, I don't know, but this is something that I want to explore in the program, right? We're thinking these two different revenue streams. We're not 100% sure, but that's something that we want to work on in the program, or, that kind of stuff. I also would say that I think Isabel has, maybe she mentioned this before, or maybe it was in the blog post that you were writing, Isabel, but like, the application is open from September 8th to October 15th. I can guarantee you that most people are not going to start reading applications until October 16th. So there's no benefit to applying early. And so I would spend that time trying to get your traction numbers up, or revenue, or proof of concept, or whatever, and apply on the October 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. So yeah.
Yeah, don't rush it. If you have questions, reach out to one of us.
Yeah.
On the video, Isabel, how many of you are going to apply? Raise your hands in the video. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, see? Good. I mean, honestly, just at least take a look at the application, even if you're on the fence about it, and understand the kind of questions. I mean, it's not too hard. If that's the challenge that anyone's thinking about, it's not that hard of a challenge, and we're happy to walk you through it as well. And some of the questions might make you think about your business in a whole different way.
100% agreed. I'm going to answer the question that I posed to both of them really quickly, especially in light of everything that's going on in the world today. I think one of the first places that I'm going to go in your deck or in your application is your DEI, how you answer that question. And I want to see what your team looks like. If it's 3 white guys and all your advisors are 3 white guys or 5 white guys, that's not good. And so, work on expanding your team now, and your founding team or your advisory team, or maybe merge with someone on this call or someone in the Slack room and create a 1 + 1 = 3 pet care startup. Yeah, just that's kind of where we're at.
I think our track records were 63% diverse and female founders from RGA Ventures, and that's something that we believe in to be very reflective of our culture as well. And so we really want to make sure that that's happening. But I think in the last LEAP programs, Assad, we've been very predominantly female founder, co-founder led companies.
Yeah, I think we've at least temporarily solved the female founder issue. I think the diverse founder issue is we have a lot of work to do, and we recognize that, and we're trying. Bibiana said being a part of the bootcamp increases opportunities to get in. I would say that it doesn't decrease opportunities to get in. Like, I think that for those of you that are part of our bootcamp coming up, it's a great way for us to get to know a startup better and help them land where they need to land. And I would say that 2 of the companies that participated in our bootcamp got in probably would not have gone into the studio had they not gone through the bootcamp first. And because we got to know them so well in their business model, there was just something that was lost in translation before that process. And I think that's the case for so much of the startup life. Is just like, the more you get to know the startup, the better you understand the problems that they're solving and how their work ethic and all sorts of stuff. And that matters a lot.
I'm going to send you guys in the chat on the side. There's my link. If anybody has questions following up, there's 30 minutes in my calendar. Just ask. Let's not do it this week, but next week. And the calendar's up to date. If anything does need to be shifted around because of things that come up in my life and calendar, I'll let you know, and we'll move to a better time. And I don't sleep a lot, so if anyone's not US based, I'm pretty flexible on days and times.
And Isabel and I are going to be having open office hours basically every week until the next couple months. And that's a great way for you to connect with us. And then also, reach out on Slack if you have questions, but it's also a great way for people to help each other as well. We are kind of in the next 4 weeks are slam putting the bootcamp together, but towards the end of September, we'll probably be more available to answer one-on-one questions that people have specifically about their application.
Awesome. Well, it's 3:00. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Hopefully you got some of your questions answered and learned a little bit more about the studio program. We're going to be posting the recording up on our YouTube channel today. So if you want to look back at anything on the slides, that'll be the best place to do it. And we can't wait to learn more about your companies, and really excited to see that so many of you are interested in applying. So yeah, with that, have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you.